nightmare to others! Lord! Oh, Jesus Christ!
But I will give you a message. The message of death!
Game over!
Make no attempt to capture them. They are to be exterminated.
Mrs. Beale, we're needed.
Matron, take them away!
Say goodbye, doctors. You're all going on a long journey. A very long journey.
Hello there and welcome to the 2024 Christmas special of We Need to Talk About ... Once again, we are taking a look at some classic Doctor Who, and we're having a look at a couple of stories that may or may not be part of the canon. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, and all that. As always, we are your hosts, the middle-aged movie boys with a love for jammy dodgers and jelly babies. I am the Big Daddy D, David Mabley, and when I say run, then run. Run!
And I'm Luke Murphy, and I'll explain later. The year was 1993, and the 30th anniversary of Doctor Who was approaching quickly. Now, the BBC knew, albeit somewhat reluctantly, that they had to do something special to commemorate the significant milestone. I say reluctantly, because the Beeb had developed a long-standing love-hate relationship with the show by this time.
So why did you cancel the show?
I thought it was rubbish. I thought it was pathetic. I mean, I'd seen Star Wars, and I'd seen Close Encounters and E.T., and then I had to watch these cardboard things probably clonking across the floor, trying to scare kids. You know, you just sit and laugh at it.
There had already been a steady number of classic Who stories being released on good old VHS videotape by this point, alongside several specials with filmed inserts featuring past Doctors and companions, which was under the direction of former producer and showrunner and fellow lover of loud shirts, John Nathan Turner. These releases indicated that there was still a lot of interest left for the show and a promising market for a one-off, multi-Doctor story that could be done as a special production with the aim of releasing it straight to video.
Eventually entitled as The Dark Dimension, the BBC secured the involvement of Graham Harper, director of several of the best 1980s stories, to the project. He was responsible for The Caves of Androzani,
Yes.
Peter Davison's Swan Song.
His last and best story.
Absolutely. Yeah, the way he did the regeneration for that. I think he based it on a Beatles song. Kind of A Day in the Life, because it does the crescendo and then boom.
You lent me that on DVD when we went
did?
into lockdown. You lent me a stack of Doctor Who DVDs and you picked your favourite episode.
Yes, and that was one of them.
For each Doctor. So the one for Peter Davison was that.
Yeah.
You also picked out for me another Graham Harper story, Revelation of the Daleks, one of Colin Baker's best stories. Quite dark as well.
If not Colin Baker's best TV story. Because obviously he's done Big Finish and what have you, and there's a whole thing about the Sixth Doctor and Big Finish which have done brilliant stuff. Because the best Sixth Doctor story is probably Jubilee, which was later loosely remade as Dalek for Christopher Eccleston.
Rid the universe of your filth! Why don't you just die?
You would make a good Dalek.
But on TV, Revelation of the Daleks, because it's just nasty, it's bleak, but it's also utterly hilarious. The black humour all the way through Revelation of the Daleks is superb. And also, it has Alexis Hale in it as the DJ, which is wonderful.
They went that way. You will come with us.
Clive Swift is in it. He gets a syringe to the neck.
Yes, he does. Yeah, and there's some wonderful sort of characters in the story because they're all unrelenting shits.
Yeah. And when they got the comeuppance, it was richly deserved.
Yeah, I am fine with this. It's okay. Yeah.
And then you get the
really
bloke who's slowly turning into a Dalek and actually yells at his own daughter to kill him, which is extremely dark and disturbing.
Oh, did I?
Kill me! Kill me!
We can go on about Colin Baker Doctor Who stories. You know, they're up and down, up and down, up and down. That is just
That is one of the best
that's how it should have been done from the beginning. To be fair, So, but,
and I'm very pleased that you lent me that. And I think they reached out to Graham Harper because they knew that this story was going to get released on video. It wasn't going to be on TV, so it wasn't going to be children that was watching this. It was going to be more older fans of the show. So they were appealing to a more contemporary audience, which meant that they could go a bit more darker and a bit more horrific, and that's why they reached out to Graham Harper.
And I think it does say a heck of a lot that when the new series came back and Russell T taking over and what have you, the first classic Doctor Who director, in actual fact I think he's the only one that's come back, is Graham Harper. Yeah. Graham Harper's the one that came back and did that.
There's no need to start worrying yet.
Despite Sylvester McCoy technically being the incumbent Doctor during that period, he was not intended to be the lead character of this narrative. Instead, Tom Baker was to portray the Doctor, with Rik Mayall cast as the story's antagonist. Although McCoy, along with Peter Davison, Jon Pertwee and Colin Baker, were also set to appear, their roles were slated to be significantly less prominent. This unusual decision stemmed from the perception that Tom Baker's incarnation was the one that was most well known with the show at the time.
You will return me to the Daleks.
Shut up or I'll switch you off.
So the proposed script attempted to justify this casting by focusing on a convoluted scenario involving an alternative timeline in which the Fourth Doctor does not regenerate at the conclusion of Logopolis due to the interdimensional tampering of Rik Mayall's villainous Professor Hawkspur. Tom Baker had actually suggested getting Douglas Adams on board to write this. Of course, Douglas Adams had wrote Pirate Planet, City of Death, Shard. He'd written a few Tom Baker stories. But
the script editor, and yeah, so he was running things at the time. This is at the same time that he's doing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy on radio, what have you. So he was doing double duty, shall we say, on both things. And boy, did Graham Williams, the producer at the time, know about it, because there was a few occasions where Douglas was missing, shall we say, because he was working on something else. Yes. Douglas Adams classically suffered A, from writer's block, and B, if there was something else that took his attention away from what he was probably supposed to be doing, he would do that frequently. What's the quote? He says, I love deadlines. I love the whooshing sound they make as they go by. It's wonderful.
Well, that probably explains why Douglas Adams declined the offer to return to Doctor Who, because he was probably very, very, very busy at the time being a best-selling author.
Well, yes, amongst other things as well. Although the actors' tentative participation was secured, despite some being unhappy with their reduced roles as mere cameos, and many key production staff were involved, the Dark Dimension was ultimately never brought to fruition. This decision stemmed from concerns about what could genuinely be achieved with the limited budget set aside for the straight-to-video release. Additionally, there were fears that if the production was poorly received, it could deter other parties interested in producing their own version of Doctor Who in collaboration with the BBC.
And the BBC never turned around at any point and said, we're officially killing off Doctor Who, we're cancelling Doctor Who. They left it in limbo.
They wanted people to forget about it so they wouldn't have to address it.
But the weird thing is, at the same time as putting it in limbo, they were happy to continue Doctor Who as long as somebody else did it, which is one of the reasons why the Dalton Ray's film group got involved. They secured the rights to do a film version of Doctor Who in 1987, awkwardly enough while Sylvester McCoy was still the Doctor. And they had plenty of investors putting the money into the project, including, bizarrely enough, Brian Ferry and John Ilse from Dire Straits. So Dire Straits wanted to see a Doctor Who film being made.
Okay, fair enough. I can remember seeing the poster. I can remember seeing a poster.
There was a
mock-up poster.
A mock-up poster. Not a particularly good one. Not particularly good logo either.
No.
And the tagline was "The Man, the Myth, the Movie."
Yeah, that was Doctor Who: Last of the Time Lords.
Last of the Time Lords.
Which obviously we do actually get to in later years. Spielberg wanted to do something or get involved.
Well, this was the cheeky thing. So whilst the Dalton Race Film Group were doing their thing, because they were under the impression they had exclusive rights to do a Doctor Who film, the BBC were having a little conversation with Steven Spielberg.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's called hedging your bets, that really, isn't it?
I think it's called breach of contract.
Well, it could be. Well, legally speaking, yes, it could be called that as well.
So Spielberg had long been a fan of the show. He actually was quoted as saying the world would be a much poorer place without Doctor Who. Some of the names that got thrown around, I've got a list here. Some of the names that got thrown around for both versions of the film, for who was going to be the Doctor. So see what you think some of these names.
Go on.
Tim Curry.
I'm fine with this.
Space!
Dudley Moore.
He was very, very big in the 80s, was Dudley Moore. Very, very, riding the crest of a wave on Arthur and what have you. So yeah, I can see that. I'm okay with that one.
John Cleese. You're not sure about that one?
I'm not sure about that one.
Albert Finney.
Yeah, that would work.
Alan Rickman.
The Road Not Taken.
That would have been good. Donald Sutherland.
That would have been interesting as well.
At one point, Eric Idle's name was attached.
Yeah, okay.
Simon Callow. Colonel Guile. These instructions.
Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens.
He was played Charles Dickens.
He did.
In Doctor Who, so that's fine.
And even back then, they were thinking of a female doctor because Jane Seymour's name was attached at one point.
That's interesting. Can I add another name to the list? I don't know whether or not you know about this name, but I can remember reading an article in the early 1990s in Doctor Who magazine. I'm going to assume it's Doctor Who magazine, could have been a daily newspaper, where somebody mentioned to appeal to the Americans to get an American actor to play the Doctor.
Controversial, okay.
Yes, but if you're going to appeal on both sides of the Atlantic, there's only one person you call.
Oh, go on.
You call the Hoff.
David Hasselhoff.
David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, because, nothing says dimensional time travel quite like Baywatch, does it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, got the slow motion running.
Well, that's funny because Pamela Anderson had a name attached to the project at one point as the Doctor's possible companion. So you could have had David Hasselhoff and Pamela Anderson basically.
David Hasselhoff
running from Daleks in slow motion.
David Hasselhoff, Pamela Anderson, and a talking TARDIS.
Yes.
Well, what the hell are we standing here for?
To be honest, it actually got as far into sort of production with Amblin, with Spielberg's company, to the point where they started doing some proposed redesigns for the Daleks, including giving them a more sort of spider-like appearance.
Oh God, the spider Dalek.
And that went about as well as you can expect, with one critic, Mr. Dominic Diamond, hilariously quipping on an episode of Games Master, "Come on, Stevie, my pants look more like a Dalek than this."
They actually did do a spider Dalek design for that, and I think it was they were looking at sort of it for the Paul McGann 96 movie as well, but obviously we don't see the Daleks at the time in that, which is probably better. But I think I have actually seen the Spider Dalek before.
We've spent a bit of time already talking about Doctor Who movies that haven't happened, and at some point there's going to be the inevitable bit where we talk about the 1996 TV movie with Paul McGann.
Yes.
I think at some point we are going to have to do a completely separate episode where we cover Doctor Who the movie, because at the moment we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah, very much so.
That's going to need its entire separate episode, which we might end up doing next year perhaps. Anyway, we're getting massively ahead of ourselves.
Massively diverging as well.
Ultimately, Doctor Who's Dark Dimension was cancelled and the entire project vanished without any trace. Although there have been several fan-made attempts of the story over the years, including one that was recorded during the COVID pandemic. It's a bit of a shame really, because can you imagine what it would have been like if Tom Baker and Rik Mayall were on screen together? It'd have been definitely memorable.
I think Tom Baker would have killed him.
Do you think?
Yes.
But yeah, the anniversary would now seem purely to be solely commemorated through a few documentaries and the re-release of numerous stories on video. Satellite TV channel UK Gold, which had been airing the classic series since late 1992, which is when I first started watching it.
I started religiously sort of getting these because my auntie had Sky, so the omnibus editions were on Sunday morning, which had a stack of blank VHS videotapes.
Did you just tape them?
And just taped them.
Oh, fantastic. UK Gold planned a Doctor Who themed weekend featuring a variety of episodes, and additionally a brand new audio play written by former producer Barry Letts, good old Uncle Barry, and starring Jon Pertwee, Elizabeth Sladen and Nicholas Courtney, provided a welcome addition to the canon.
They did two. They did The Paradise of Death and The Ghosts of N-Space, and then Barry Letts turned them into Target novels. Yeah, I can remember listening to those. They're actually really quite good.
I was once travelling through the mountains on Gallifrey with my old teacher, and we'd been going for days. And it had been pretty hairy at times, what with blizzards and scorching sun and plung bowls and all.
Plung bowls?
Yeah, of course, you don't have them here, do you? Little furry creatures about the size of your thumbnail. They live up in the snow, and if they sense any warmth, they just attach themselves to it. Mountaineers have been found literally smothered by thousands of them. Anyway.
How do you get rid of them?
Oh, anti-plung bowl spray, of course.
Oh,
However, none of these efforts were the substantial celebratory production that many fans hoped for to mark the significant date. Ultimately, it was John Nathan Turner who took on the responsibility of delivering what he considered to be the appropriate way to mark this milestone, and that was Dimensions in Time. Oh dear, oh dear.
In the words of the 1996 TV movie, it was a request they should never have granted. Having worked at BBC Enterprises since Doctor Who's cancellation and now overseeing the VHS video releases, Nathan Turner was approached by the organisers of the annual charity telethon Children in Need. The idea was to have a special short 2-part film revolving around the intrepid Time Lord that would be screened over 2 separate nights in November. Traditionally, the charitable status of Children in Need has big stars and properties crossover, waiving their usual fees and copyright royalties in order to maximise potential donations. And as a result of this special cannot be released on a physical home format to avoid extensive legal conflicts. No VHS release was ever made, and the chances of this getting a DVD or a Blu-ray inclusion are quite frankly slim. And that's probably for the best, to be honest.
Although that hasn't stopped fans from making several bootleg versions of the DVD, which get sold at conventions and on eBay.
Yes.
And you can also watch it on archive.org and on YouTube as well, funnily enough.
Yes, so, but we don't encourage that at all.
The resulting 12-minute outcome, which was John Nathan Turner's final goodbye to Doctor Who, is embarrassingly atrocious. The special was part of a section of the evening that was hosted by Noel Edmonds, actually using the set of Noel's house party.
Right, as if this couldn't get any worse. Noel Edmonds.
There's one saving grace to all this. Well, actually, there's two. The first saving grace is that Noel Edmonds' other creation, the eldritch horror that is Mr. Blobby, thankfully did not make an appearance in this special. For that, we can be grateful of small mercies.
Well, yes, this is good.
The second, perhaps bigger saving grace, is that the legendary Jon Pertwee himself turned up to Noel's house at the fictional village of Crinkly Bottom.
I never thought that we'd ever mention Crinkly Bottom on this here programme. But hey ho, there we go. That's how low we've had to stoop.
He actually came with a warning from the future, did Jon Pertwee. He says, "I've travelled to the year 2010, you're still on television."
Mercifully, that did not come to pass.
Although Jon Pertwee officially left the role of the Third Doctor in 1974, his association with Doctor Who was never truly over. And in many ways, Pertwee didn't really stop being the Doctor, as he continued to embrace the character and the show long after his tenure ended. He became a passionate ambassador for Doctor Who, maintaining his connection through fans at numerous convention appearances where he would regale audiences with stories from his time on the series.
In this particular instance, we said we're going to have a joke on the brig. So we all of us got together, and the brig was wearing a black patch, and he had a scar. And so we went into makeup in the dress rehearsal, and we got black patches and scars. And there was you and Caroline John and myself. And we knocked at the door, and the brig had his back to us, and I said, "This has got a corpse in. We're at last going to get him." When he turns round, you see. And so he had his back to us, and we knocked at the door, and he said, "Yeah, come in." And he turned round and paid no attention of any sort at all. And there we were with the, giggling with the black patches and the scars like this. And Nick went straight on as if nothing had happened at all, which completely corpsed us. And we were very severely reprimanded by the producer. He said, "What the hell are you playing at? Go and take those bloody stupid things off." And Nick said, "Do forgive the crowds." Very funny. You can't rock the brig, so I gave up after that.
And there are some delightful photographs of Jon Pertwee and Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor himself, enjoying themselves at various conventions. They can be seen making goofy faces and playfully chasing each other with water pistols. In one instance, Pertwee went a step further by setting aside his water pistol and pursuing Troughton with an entire bucket of water. Now, this surely created a particularly memorable and surreal experience for Doctor Who fans who witnessed this in person.
Pertwee's love for the show had also led him to reprise his role as the Third Doctor in various capacities over the years. He made guest appearances in anniversary specials specials like The Five Doctors in 1983. He participated in charity events like this one, and he lent his voice to audio dramas, ensuring that his incarnation of the Time Lord continued to live on. Through these continued engagements, Pertwee demonstrated that once an actor becomes the Doctor, the role becomes an integral part of their identity, transcending the boundaries of their official time on the television show.
But even Pertwee must have had second thoughts when he sat down next to Noel Edmonds, put on his 3D glasses, and proceeded to watch the dumpster fire that was to follow.
We've got a fantastic Doctor Who adventure, Dimensions in Time. And remember, you can influence the outcome.
Pickled in time, like gherkins in a jar.
Mistress Rani, the time tunnel is ready to receive its first guests.
Proceed.
There is virtually no budget for this special whatsoever, and I know the classic Doctor Who had a reputation for having small budgets, wobbly sets and monsters made from bubble wrap and papier-mâché, but in this case they weren't joking. There's no money for this. Nada. Zilch. Bugger all. To understand this, you just have to look at the amazingly absurd opening scene where the heads of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton appear utterly bewildered as they spin around inside the Rani's ship, rendered in poorly executed special effects.
Thankfully, there was enough goodwill left in the show to entice the former Doctor Who actors back for the special. Not just Pertwee, but also Peter Davidson, Colin Baker, and current Doctor Sylvester McCoy, who all made a return to their former roles as the Doctor for this one-off charity special. Even Tom Baker popped in as well, but only to appear in one section.
Our whole existence is being threatened by a renegade Time Lord known only as the Rani. She hates me. She even hates children.
Apparently also asked Anthony Ainsley to return as the Master.
Mercifully, he said no.
He dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Do you know who else dodged a massive bullet? The person who was the Rani's assistant.
Oh, it's Samuel West.
Samuel West. You know who they originally asked to play the part?
Who?
Ian McKellen.
Oh my God.
So that's another bullet dodged.
Oh, really? Just side note: Samuel West is a wonderful actor. He really, really is. He's been playing Siegfried Farnan in All Creatures Great and Small, but he's also been in Doctor Who. He's done Big Finish. He played Morbius, and he's really, really good at it. Really, really good at it. So
with no Master, JNT basically went for the next best thing and got Kate O'Mara back on board as the Rani, another villainous Time Lord. And I think this is the last time Kate O'Mara played the Rani as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And she was good at it. I mean, it was third appearance. Time of the Rani and then Mark of the Rani beforehand. Yeah. The charity specials production faced significant budgetary constraints. There were no funds for constructing new large-scale sets or commissioning elaborate costumes. Instead, the team had to make use of existing resources, sometimes borrowing from other programs altogether. It was within these limitations that Nathan Turner came up with the idea of turning Dimensions in Time into a crossover episode, integrating Doctor Who with the BBC's leading soap opera, EastEnders.
Now, undoubtedly the concept of blending these two very different shows might appear surprising, but nonetheless, EastEnders, having been in continuous production for nearly 8 years by this point, offered an extensive exterior set that could be utilised for the special. This unusual collaboration enabled cameo appearances from both Doctor Who and EastEnders characters. This not only enhanced the special's appeal to viewers, but also confirmed to the production's budgetary constraints. Regrettably though, whilst it seems innovative on paper, the execution was a whole different story.
Yeah, what do you mean discounts? This year's been bad enough as it is without you giving things away.
Don't worry about it, what?
Hey, do you like that, love?
Clashes.
I tell you, they're going to be the rage in 1994.
Oh yes, by the way, it's the year 1994, which as we know, is when Mr. Boogaloo was using his music to take over the world.
Really? Really?
Yes.
You've made me watch Dimensions in Time.
Yes.
A nightmare that I have tried to put out of my head for nigh on 30 years. Well, probably longer than 30 years. And now you're mentioning the apple.
Yes.
In the same breath as Dimensions in Time.
Yes.
And you expect me not to make some sort of reaction?
Oh, Luke. Luke, come back. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Luke, come back. Come back. Cut. Cut. I'm very, very sorry, all right?
I'm not talking to you.
I actually feel quite bad about it. I was going to leave this for the pub, but I think I better give you this now.
It better not be a bin mark.
Merry Christmas, Luke. I'm very sorry.
If this is the novel of the apple, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, no, it's something you'll actually like.
Is this something that I'll actually... Okay.
Hold up to the camera, sir.
This is nice wrapping, this, mate.
So this stems from what you mentioned at the end of our last episode. And I thought you'd probably appreciate it. It can probably go on the shelf next to your Witchfinder General DVD. Do you want to just hold that up to the camera? Oh! Merry Christmas, mate.
Oh! This is awesome! Oh, potato recipes. Oh, okay. Section 5, cream, milk and yogurt. I bet you that's probably satanic in some way.
Vincent Price, yeah.
Yeah, with some... Wowzers! Fried chicken with lemon rice. Ooh, that sounds actually very nice. Wowzers. Huntington fidget pan. Oh, hello. Wow. Oh, thank you very much, mate.
That's amazing what you can find on Amazon when you've had a few drinks on a Friday night.
For God's sake, how you found that? I mean, when was that first published? Oh my God, look at this. Price, UK, 30p.
30p.
In brackets.
Yeah.
6 shillings.
6 shillings. Probably explains why the pages are the colour that they are.
Well, yeah, it's well worn, let's put it this way.
But I thought you'd appreciate that.
That's really, really good now. Now I'm going to have to sort of get on the Amazon and order the Blu-ray from the BFI.
I was just going to say that they released the Blu-ray in November.
That's superb. Oh, I'll be having a look at that later.
Right.
And the family Murphy is going to dine well tonight.
I have a present for producer Josh as well, but once again, he hasn't turned up for a recording session, so we'll grab him in the pub later on.
Absolutely.
Call yourself a producer, Josh. Well, you're not producer Josh. You're not producer Josh. You're not producer Ben. If you're any character out of Help I Sixed My Boss, you're William Hanson, and that's going to tie into the present that you get later on. Anyway, I'll leave that for now.
I'm feeling very, very worried for him now, but anyways, let's keep on going.
So, where were we? Oh yes, back to the show. Within the special, it was decided that the Doctor would continuously switch between his former incarnations because of a time slip, engineered by the Rani as part of her plan to capture different life forms. The exact reason for this? Well, that's never clearly explained. Is there a particular reason why she's collecting a zoo of different alien species? Did I miss that, or was it just not explained?
No, it wasn't explained. The time clips are the least coherent aspect of this plot because not only does the Doctor keep switching incarnations, which is somewhat understandable, but his companions do too, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
It's implied that Ace transforms into Mel and then into Susan. So does this mean that she just looks like Susan, or that she actually is Susan? And if it's the former, then why does she say to the Doctor,
Who are you?
Precisely. I am the Doctor.
Oh, no, you're not. You're nothing like my grandfather.
And we should also point out that this has been Caroline Ford's last on-screen appearance as Susan. Her last appearance prior to this was on The Five Doctors.
So, yeah, Russell T Davies, get it sorted out, mate.
Please do. It needs to happen. It gets even more nonsensical when Susan then apparently turns into both Perry and Nyssa at the same time.
Isn't Noel's arc, Doctor?
Maybe it is. When I say run, run.
And then later, Perry and Nyssa turn into Liz.
Yes.
Who then runs away after being confronted by Mandy from EastEnders, of all people.
Of all people, yeah, exactly.
It's impossible to explain and painful to watch. Pretty much every single thing is embarrassing. From the terrible rave remix of the theme tune, which absolutely wasn't needed at all.
It was the early 90s. It was the early 90s. Rave was everywhere.
To the cringe-worthy jokes of the EastEnders regulars.
Well, I've seen them thrown out of Vic, but
Never dragged in.
The companions' costumes also seem to have been cobbled together in a hurry. In fact, I think with some of them, they just turned up in the clothes they were wearing and said, yeah, just wear those.
Yeah.
Louise Jameson agreed to reprise her role as Leela under one condition, that she would not have to dress up in her famously revealing outfit. Instead, they dressed her up in what appeared to be a pantomime Pocahontas costume. And additionally, the reason behind Romana just hanging around in the Mitchell brothers' garage is also unclear.
And even the long overdue on-screen encounter between the Sixth Doctor and Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart cannot prevent the narrative from descending into an increasingly convoluted and hardly competent mess.
Some other time, eh, Brigadier? Alas, there's no time for pleasantries. I must find my young friend.
We'll speak soon, old chap. To all of you, I hope.
And if that wasn't enough, this mess was all in 3D as well.
Now, we need you to put on your glasses. If you bought your glasses, everybody here in the Great House, kindly put on your glasses. There we go.
Yes, you heard me right, 3D. The gimmick for 1993's Children in Need programme was 3D. Not the sort of digital stereoscopy 3D that was the brief gimmick at the cinema a few years ago for the likes of Avatar and Clash of the Titans and Toy Story 3, amongst many others, but the old-fashioned anaglyph method, familiar to many filmgoers from the 1950s, where red and blue or red and green lenses cheat the brain into perceiving moving objects at depths separate to each other. Now, watching it now, the continuously revolving camera work designed to enhance the 3D effect is torturous to endure, and having watched it back in 1993 with my special pair of Children in Need 3D glasses, I can confirm that this was a load of old shite anyway.
And of course, the other gimmick for Children in Need was who's going to help the Doctor. So you'd have to ring in at the halfway point to vote for who would be helping the Doctor, Mandy or Big Ron. So presumably there's an alternative version of this scene with Big Ron instead of Mandy helping out.
Yes.
By the way, Mandy was useless. All she did was get in the way of Liz and the Rani and then ran away. Big Ron would have sorted things out though.
Oh, you could tell by Big Ron, he was useful.
And Big Ron also knows how to make a pie.
Yes.
That might be a different Big Ron.
Yes.
Barbara, get the big plates out.
Oh, Nigel.
Give your wife the best. Give her Big Ron's big pies.
So, I was 13 when I watched this. Luke would have been about, 14, 15?
About 14, 15, yeah.
So, for us, Peter Davison was our Doctor growing up. Although I do remember going off the show a little bit when Colin Baker showed up and tried to throttle poor Perry. I knew of Sylvester McCoy and had caught a number of his episodes, and through television reruns, again through the likes of UK Gold, I managed to catch an assortment of episodes from the Jon Pertwee and Tom Baker years. I did consider myself a Doctor Who fan. Probably not a massive one now, to the point where I'm talking about it on YouTube like a mad person. But yeah, back then I still considered myself to be a fan of the show. But even at the age of 13, with my limited exposure to the TV show and to the character and his various incarnations, at this point I remembered my main reaction to Dimensions in Time being a baffled, what?
Yeah. How did you think I felt?
Over the years, it has been compared to the notorious Star Wars Holiday Special, which is hardly a flattering comparison, and understandably so. Similar to the Holiday Special, Dimensions in Time is a baffling, disjointed, incoherent, and embarrassingly poor mess.
However, there are two key factors that prevent Dimensions in Time from releasing the same appalling level as the Holiday Special. First, it is, fortunately, brief, split into two parts allowing for an intermission. Second, Dimensions in Time did succeed in raising an impressive £17.5 million for charitable causes across the United Kingdom, and for this reason our harsh critique of Dimensions in Time should be somewhat tempered. Nevertheless, this does not mean we must accept this debacle as part of our series canon.
Unlike the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I have reviewed separately on my channel, so don't worry, you have been spared from that.
Thank you.
Dimensions in Time was not created as a cynical, soulless cash grab. They were good intentions behind this when it was created. Despite the dismay it causes amongst fans, the crossover episode between Doctor Who and EastEnders had a positive outcome, aiding millions of young people throughout Britain in obtaining essential support and opportunities. And this is something of which the Doctor himself would undoubtedly be proud of.
In spite of the funds generated, the show itself did not benefit positively from this crossover. It seemed that whatever goodwill was left for the programme might have evaporated entirely, validating the claim that by James Arnold Baker, head of BBC Enterprises at the time, who asserted that Doctor Who was a series that had seen its day and was no longer commercially viable.
Indeed, one line from the Rani in this special seemed to be somewhat appropriate.
Say goodbye, doctors. You're all going on a long journey. A very long journey.
So, what came next for Doctor Who? Well, after the anniversary year and the problematic dimensions in time, it seemed like the future of the show was uncertain.
However, as Dee Reams sang in the 90s, things can only get better. So do be sure to join us in part 2 of this Christmas special, where we'll take a look at another charity special that, surprisingly, is actually rather good. So, see you in part 2.